She bullies teachers and students until this happens. Presec edition. In the heart of Accra sat the sprawling Presec-Legon campus, a prestigious school known for grooming brilliant young men and women. Among its halls walked Afia Amoah, the daughter of a wealthy MP and a powerful woman in the city. Everyone feared Afia. Students, teachers, even the headmistress, Madame Oforiwa. To many, she was untouchable. Her beauty was undeniable. Skin as smooth as cocoa butter, full lips, and captivating dark eyes. But her heart was sharp and cruel. Dressed impeccably in her clean-fitted kaba and slit, she strutted through campus like she owned it, her shoes clicking loudly on the tiles of the hallways. Girls whispered in the shadows, boys admired from afar, but no one dared cross Afia. One humid afternoon in Form 3, the history teacher, Mr. Kwame, delayed for class. Afia, seeing an opportunity, turned her attention to a quiet student named Ama Asare. Petite, gentle, and bright, Ama had unknowingly earned Afia's wrath by topping her in last term's exams. Afia's voice, as sweet as sugar, but laced with venom, echoed through the room. Ama, your head is big enough for all your books, isn't it? Yet you can't afford better shoes. The class fell silent. Ama froze, clutching her books tighter. Before she could respond, Afia strode forward and yanked her by the collar of her faded uniform. The murmurs stopped. This was Afia's trademark move. Kwame Mensah, a new boy from Kumasi and known for his boldness, couldn't take it anymore. His deep voice rang out, cutting through the tension. Afia, leave her alone. The class gasped. Afia's smile disappeared, her dark eyes narrowing at Kwame. This boy must not know who I am, she thought. What did you say? She taunted, stepping closer, her heels tapping in rhythm with her anger. Kwame stood his ground, his tall frame towering over Afia. You heard me. Ama isn't your puppet, he replied. The class was now buzzing. Just as Afia's hand twitched to slap Kwame, Mr. Kwame entered the room. His eyes darted between Ama's pale face and Kwame's angry glare. What's happening here? Afia, as sly as ever, painted herself as the victim. Sir, Kwame insulted me for no reason. Kwame's protests went unheard. Mr. Kwame sighed. Kwame, I don't want trouble. Apologize and sit down. Kwame clenched his fists, glaring at Afia. He refused to apologize. She started it, he muttered under his breath. But no one dared challenge Afia. News of Kwame's defiance spread quickly. He became a hero among his peers, but Afia's fury simmered. She began scheming, sending her loyal followers, beautiful but ruthless girls like Essie and Akosua, to bully anyone who supported Kwame. One afternoon, Afia tried to sabotage Kwame by framing him for stealing exam answers. The situation escalated until it reached the headmistress's office. Madame Oforiwa, a stern but fair woman, looked down at Kwame, then Afia. Bring me evidence, she said sharply. Without it, I won't punish this boy. The tides were beginning to turn. Afia's influence was slipping, and for the first time, she tasted fear. Weeks later, during a school assembly, Afia publicly humiliated Ama again, this time ripping Ama's kente pattern bag in front of everyone. But a student, hiding their phone, recorded the incident. That night, the video spread like wildfire across Accra. Comments flooded social media. The MP's daughter? Is this how she was raised? This is why power can't go unchecked. Look at Presec-Legon. By morning, the scandal rocked Ghana. Afia's father was dragged into the chaos, with journalists demanding answers. Kwame, Ama, and others who had been victims of Afia's reign finally felt justice on the horizon. Afia sat in her luxurious family mansion, scrolling through endless, hateful comments. For the first time, her father, the MP, shouted at her, "Do you know what you've done to our name?" Her power was crumbling. Back at Presec, Kwame watched Amoah smile for the first time in weeks. He knew this wasn't the end. Afia would fight back, but he was ready for whatever came next. Days passed after the viral video, but the tension at Presec-Legon only grew thicker. Afia Amoah had gone quiet, a silence that was more unnerving than her usual arrogance. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said her father, the MP, was pulling strings to bury the scandal. Others whispered she'd been suspended. But Afia returned. Her arrival on a Wednesday morning was like the calm before a storm. She strolled through the school gates, dressed immaculately in her uniform, a kente-patterned ribbon neatly tied in her hair, her face expressionless. No mocking smile, no condescending glares, just silence. The students watched in confusion. Was she humbled? Had she finally learned her lesson? Kwame, leaning against a wall near the science block, watched her warily. Something's off, he thought. By lunchtime, Afia's loyal followers, Essie and Akosua, were on the prowl. They cornered Amoah in the library, where she'd been revising for the upcoming exams. "Enjoying your fame, Amoah?" Essie sneered, leaning closer. "You think you and your hero, Kwame, have won?" Amoah clutched her books tighter, refusing to look up. Akosua snatched one of Amoah's textbooks and tossed it to the floor, pages fluttering everywhere. "Afia says you'll pay for what you've done," Akosua whispered coldly, her voice like ice. "And so will Kwame." Amoah's eyes widened with fear. "What do you mean?" she stammered, but Essie only smirked. "You'll see." That afternoon, Kwame was summoned to the headmistress's office. As he entered, he froze. Sitting across from Madame Oforiwa was Afia, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Madame Oforiwa held up a crumpled letter. "Kwame, do you recognize this?" Kwame glanced at the paper. It was a poorly forged note, claiming he had threatened Afia after the viral video and vowed to harm her. "No, ma'am, I didn't write that," Kwame said, his voice steady but desperate. Afia's voice dripped with sweetness. "But madam, I found it in my locker this morning. I don't feel safe anymore." Madame Oforiwa's sharp eyes darted between them. "Kwame, if this is true—" "It's not," Kwame interrupted, his fists clenched at his sides. "This is another one of her games." The headmistress sighed, clearly conflicted. "Kwame, until I get to the bottom of this, you are suspended for 3 days." The words hit Kwame like a slap. Afia's lips curled into a victorious smile, and for the first time, Kwame felt like he was losing. Outside, Amoah waited anxiously under the baobab tree where Kwame always sat during breaks. When she saw him storm out of the office, she rushed to his side. "What happened?" she asked, breathless. Kwame shook his head, anger burning in his eyes. "They suspended me," Amoah gasped. "But why? You didn't do anything." Kwame turned to her, his voice soft but firm. "Afia's not done yet. She's coming for us, Amoah." Amoah's hands trembled as she whispered, "There's something I need to tell you." Kwame frowned. "What is it?" Amoah glanced around nervously before speaking. I think I know who planted that note in Afia's locker. It wasn't you, but it wasn't Afia either." Kwame's brows furrowed. "Then who?" Amoah hesitated, her voice barely audible. "Essie. I saw her sneaking into Afia's locker this morning." Kwame's heart raced. "Are you sure?" Amoah nodded. "I didn't say anything because I was scared. What if they come after me again?" Kwame placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing by telling me, but now we need to prove it." As the sun dipped behind the Presec buildings, Kwame and Amoah gathered their closest friends. You're a tech-savvy genius, and Maame, the outspoken girl who wasn't afraid of Afia's crew. Together, they hatched a plan. "We need evidence," Yor said, tapping away on his laptop. "If Amoah saw Essie, that means she might have left a trail." "What kind of trail?" Maame asked. Yor grinned. "There's a CCTV camera near Afia's locker. I'm going to find a way to get the footage." Kwame nodded. "We'll need it before the 3 days are up. Afia's playing dirty, but we'll expose her." Afia, sitting in her luxurious bedroom with her phone buzzing endlessly, scrolled through social media. She saw comments still mocking her, still tearing down her family's reputation. Her father had warned her to lay low, but she couldn't. Kwame Mensah had to pay for humiliating her. Just then, a message popped up on her phone from Essie. "Everything's in place. Kwame's done for." Afia smirked. "Perfect." The following morning, Kwame's friends gathered nervously in Yor's dorm room. Yor grinned triumphantly, holding up his laptop. "I got the footage." On the screen, clear as day, Essie could be seen sneaking up to Afia's locker early in the morning and slipping the note inside. "This is it," Kwame said, his voice filled with hope. "This will clear my name." But just as they were about to leave for the headmistress's office, Maame's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "If you try to expose Afia, you'll regret it." The story pauses here, leaving viewers on edge. Who sent the threatening message? Will Kwame clear his name? Is there more to Afia's plot than anyone knows? The stakes are higher than ever, and the truth is just out of reach. Kwame, Amoah, Yor, and Maame sat huddled together in Yor's dorm room, the weight of the message lingering in the air. "Who sent this?" Amoah whispered, fear lacing her voice. Kwame clenched his fists. "It doesn't matter. Afia and her crew are desperate because they know we're close to the truth." Yor's eyes darted between his laptop screen and his friends. "We have the footage. We can't let this threat stop us. If we back down now, Afia wins, and no one will ever stand up to her again." Kwame nodded, determination flashing in his eyes. "Let's end this once and for all." The next morning, Kwame and his friends marched toward Madame Oforiwa's office. Kwame carried Yor's laptop like a soldier carrying a shield. The sun blazed over the Presec campus as students whispered, eyes following their every step. Word had spread. Something big was about to happen. When they arrived, Afia was already there, seated with her loyal followers, Essie and Akosua. Madame Oforiwa sat behind her desk, looking stern but curious. "Kwame, I hope you're here to explain yourself," the headmistress began, her tone sharp. Kwame stood tall. "Madam, I didn't write that note, but I can prove who did." Afia's smug expression faltered. "Lies!" she snapped, rising to her feet. "He's lying, madam." Kwame ignored her outburst and handed the laptop to Madame Oforiwa. "Yor, play the footage." Yor clicked the video. The room fell silent as the CCTV footage began to play. Clear as day, Essie was shown sneaking up to Afia's locker and sliding the crumpled note inside. Madame Oforiwa's eyes widened in disbelief. "Essie, is this you?" Essie's face turned pale as the room's attention shifted to her. She stammered, No, madam. That's not me." "Stop lying," Maame cut in, her voice fierce. "The truth is right there." Madame Oforiwa turned to Afia, her tone sharp. "Afia, did you know about this?" Afia, visibly shaken, tried to regain her composure. "Madam, I didn't—" "Enough!" Madame Oforiwa's voice echoed through the room. She stood, her posture commanding. "Kwame, you've been wrongfully accused. You're hereby reinstated with immediate effect." Kwame let out a breath, he didn't realize he'd been holding. Amoah squeezed his arm in relief, tears brimming in her eyes. As for you, Essie, Madame Ofriwa continued, her voice icy, you'll face disciplinary action. And Afia, she paused, leveling a hard gaze at the once untouchable girl. Your arrogance and cruelty have brought shame not only to yourself, but to this school. I will be speaking with your father. News of Afia's exposure spread across Presec-Legon like wildfire. Students who had once cowered in fear now walked past her with disdain. She was no longer the queen bee, her power shattered, her reputation destroyed. Essie and Akosua distanced themselves, abandoning Afia to face the backlash alone. She sat alone at lunch, the mocking whispers of her former classmates ringing in her ears. Isn't that the MP's daughter who bullies people? She got exposed. Now look at her. Afia's father, the MP, had no choice but to publicly address the scandal. On national television, he apologized to the school, the teachers, and to Kwame's family. He promised to ensure Afia received counseling and swore to be a better role model as a leader. But the damage was done. The following week, Kwame and Amoah sat under the old baobab tree, the place where it all began. Amoah smiled softly, her face finally at peace. I can't believe it's over, she said. Kwame grinned, leaning back against the tree trunk. It's not over, Amoah. This is just the beginning. What do you mean? She asked, puzzled. Kwame's eyes sparkled. We stood up to Afia, and we won. But there are other bullies out there, people who think their power lets them trample on others. We've shown everyone that standing up for what's right matters, no matter the cost. Amoah nodded thoughtfully. You're right. People need to see that they don't have to be afraid anymore. Just then, Yor and Maame appeared, holding a small banner they had made. It read, Justice for all, stand tall. Kwame laughed, shaking his head. You two never stop, do you? Maame grinned. Presec needs heroes, Kwame, and you, my friend, are one. As the sun began to set over Presec-Legon, students gathered near the baobab tree, cheering and clapping for Kwame and his friends. For the first time, there was a sense of unity and hope on campus. Afia watched from a distance, her heart heavy with regret. She had lost everything: her friends, her respect, and her power. As she turned to leave, Amoah's soft voice called out to her, Afia. Afia paused, turning slowly. You can change, you know, Amoah said gently. It's not too late to be better. Afia stared at Amoah, her eyes filled with unspoken emotion, before walking away in silence. Kwame smiled as he watched Amoah extend kindness even to someone who had caused so much pain. That's why you're the strongest of us all, Amoah, he said quietly. The camera panned upward, capturing the vast sky over Presec-Legon, the warm glow of the sunset casting a golden hue over the campus. True strength lies in standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, and forgiveness is the bridge that turns enemies into allies. Thank you very much.